Part 1. The Secret. Our ancestors were never taught. Imagine traveling back to Earth 100,000 years ago. There are no cities, no hospitals, no schools, no books explaining how the human body works. Every morning, you wake up with only one mission: survive. You must find food before hunger takes your life. You must find shelter before darkness falls. You must stay away from predators hiding in the wilderness, waiting for the perfect moment to attack. In that world, nature does not care how strong you are. One mistake can cost you everything. But in a world this brutal, there was a question even more important than survival itself. Not, how do we stay alive today? But, how does humanity survive tomorrow? Because one person can live for years. But if a small group stops having children, within a few generations, that group disappears forever. And this is where the mystery begins. The earliest humans knew nothing about DNA. They knew nothing about cells. They had no understanding of sperm, eggs, or how a new life began inside the human body. There were no laboratories, no doctors, no science as we understand it today. And yet, they still had children. They still raised new generations. They still carried humanity forward for tens of thousands of years. So how did they do it? How did a species with no knowledge of biology discover one of the most important patterns of life? The answer did not come from a great invention. It did not come from a book. It did not come from a teacher. It came from something much older than any civilization on Earth. Something that was always right in front of them. Every day, every season, across thousands of years of watching and learning. That teacher was nature. And it was nature that became humanity's very first classroom. Part 2. Nature, humanity's first teacher. Long before the first books were written, long before scientists began exploring the secrets hidden inside the human body, and tens of thousands of years before words like DNA, genetics, or reproduction ever existed, our ancestors already had a teacher that never spoke. Yet it offered lessons every single day. That teacher was nature. Every forest was a classroom. Every animal was a lesson waiting to be understood. Early hunters did not only watch animals as prey. They watched their entire lives. They saw male deer fighting for mates. They witnessed animals coming together during certain seasons. They saw mothers carrying new life inside them. Their movements became slower. Their bodies became heavier. And after time had passed, newborns appeared. A new generation entered the world. These events repeated again and again, season after season, year after year. Eventually, a pattern became impossible to ignore. Life came from life. But humans did not only study the animals around them, they also observed themselves. In a small prehistoric tribe, nothing remained private for very long. People slept near one another. They traveled together. They hunted together. And they raised children together. There were no walls. No separate rooms. No modern idea of privacy. Everyone could witness the changes happening within their community. One day, a woman would be walking alongside the others, collecting plants and searching for food. Months later, her body would begin to change. Her stomach would grow. Her movements would become slower. And then, one day, surrounded by fear, pain, and anticipation, a child would take its very first breath. For ancient humans, this may have been one of the most mysterious moments they ever witnessed. They could not see what was happening inside the body. They had no understanding of sperm, eggs, or the biological process behind pregnancy. But they had something incredibly powerful: eyes, memory, and thousands of years of repeated observation. Slowly, humans began to connect the relationship between men, women, and the arrival of a child, not through a single discovery, not through a great scientific breakthrough, but through countless experiences passed from one generation to the next. Yet as they began to understand this pattern, a new question appeared. If bringing a new human into the world seemed so miraculous, could invisible forces be responsible for it? And that question would eventually lead humans toward their first myths, rituals, and beliefs surrounding the mystery of birth. Part 3. When life became a mystery. Imagine standing in a prehistoric camp tens of thousands of years ago. You watch a woman change day by day. Her body becomes different. Her stomach slowly grows. Something is developing inside her. Yet you cannot see it. You cannot touch it. And you have no idea how it works. Then one day, as the wind moves through the trees, as the fire burns beneath the night sky, a newborn takes its very first breath. A completely new human being has entered the world. Today, we explain this moment with biology, with cells, with hormones, with the interaction between sperm and egg. But for our ancient ancestors, this may have been the greatest mystery they had ever witnessed. And when humans encounter something they cannot explain, they create stories. Perhaps some tribes believed that unseen spirits placed life inside the mother. Perhaps others believed that the moon influenced fertility. Perhaps they thought ancestors, gods, or the forces of nature controlled the arrival of a child. We may never know exactly what the earliest humans believed, but we do know one thing. Across ancient cultures around the world, birth was almost always treated as something extraordinary, because birth did more than create a child. It created hope, it created a future, and it gave a community another chance to survive. This is why prehistoric women may have held some of the most valuable knowledge within their groups. Not knowledge written in books, not knowledge taught in classrooms, but knowledge gained through experience. They understood the changes in their own bodies. They recognized the signs that a birth was approaching. They learned what increased the chances of survival for both mother and child. In a world without doctors, without medicine, without hospitals, that knowledge could mean the difference between life and death. Over countless generations, these experiences were passed down, from mothers to daughters, from elders to the young, around the warmth of a fire, through stories, songs, and the earliest human rituals. These traditions did more than explain the unknown, they connected people together. They transformed the group of individuals struggling to survive into a community with memories, with beliefs, and with culture. But as generations passed, humans continued to observe. They continued to compare. They continued to recognize patterns. Slowly, they began to understand that birth was not only a mystery, it was also a process that followed certain rules. And discovering those rules would change the way humans organize their societies forever. Part 4. When humans began to see the pattern. But there was something that made reproduction more difficult to understand than almost anything else in nature. It did not happen immediately. A man and a woman could come together today, yet a child would not appear until many months later. That long delay made the connection between cause and effect incredibly difficult to recognize. Unlike throwing a stone and watching it fall, unlike touching fire and feeling pain instantly, reproduction was a mystery that unfolded silently, hidden inside the human body, beyond the reach of human eyes. And because of that, our ancestors did not understand it overnight. There was no single moment of discovery. No one stood before the tribe and said, "This is how life begins." Instead, thousands of births became lessons. Thousands of families became evidence. Thousands of years of observation slowly built understanding. Over time, humans began to recognize something important. The arrival of a child was not completely random. It was connected to the relationship between men and women. They slowly realized that men also played a role in creating new life, while women carried and nurtured that life within their bodies. This may have been one of the most important social realizations in human history, because once humans understood this pattern, everything began to change. Relationships between men and women became more significant. Raising children was no longer seen as the responsibility of one person alone. It became something that involved families, relatives, and the entire community. Humans began asking new questions. Who is the mother? Who is the father? Who belongs to which group? Who will protect and care for the next generation? From these questions, some of the earliest social rules may have begun to emerge. Long-term bonds became more important. Individual roles within a group became more clearly defined, and small communities that had once focused only on surviving the present day began thinking about the future. They thought about their children, the generations that would come after them, and the survival of their people. At that moment, reproduction was no longer just a biological event. It became the foundation for families, for communities, and eventually, for human civilization itself. But even as humans learn more about the process of life, there remains something that made our species truly unique. Humans did not simply create the next generation. They created meaning around their existence. Part 5. The knowledge that kept humanity alive. Today, we can explain the creation of a new life through science. We understand DNA. We understand cells. We know the biological processes that take place inside the human body during pregnancy. We have hospitals, doctors, technology that allows us to see a developing child before birth. But hundreds of thousands of years ago, our ancestors had none of these things. No microscopes, no medical books, no laboratories, and no one to explain the hidden mechanisms of the human body. Yet they possessed something else, something powerful enough to carry our species through ice ages, droughts, predators, and countless dangers. The ability to observe, the ability to remember, and the ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. They did not need to understand every detail of biology. They only needed to understand enough to survive, enough to care for mothers, enough to protect children, enough to ensure that their people would not disappear from the earth. And perhaps this is what makes humanity truly different. A wolf can bring more wolves into the world. A bird can build a nest and raise its young. A deer can protect its offspring. But humans do something more. We tell stories about where we came from. We remember those who lived before us. We create families. We create traditions. We build societies. And eventually, we build civilizations. Every person alive today is the result of an unbroken chain stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. A chain of individuals who survived, who loved, who had children, who protected the next generation, and who passed the gift of life forward. So the next time you see a newborn child, remember that you are not just looking at a new beginning. You are looking at the latest chapter in the longest story humanity has ever told. A story that began long before cities existed, before the first words were written, before the rise of civilization, back when our ancestors had nothing but a fire in the darkness and the desire to keep life moving forward. Ending. The next question. But perhaps the greatest mystery was never just how ancient humans brought new life into the world. The real mystery was what happened before that moment. How did early humans choose their partners? Was it love? Was it instinct? Was it survival? Or was it something completely different from what we understand today? The answer may reveal a side of our ancestors that is far more surprising than we imagine. In the next episode, how did ancient humans mate? We will travel back into the prehistoric world once again to uncover how the first human relationships were formed. If you enjoyed this journey into humanity's distant past, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we continue exploring the untold story of human evolution. Because the greatest story ever told is the story of us.